ask about this necklace. Um, this was given to me by a man who was instrumental in the removal of leukemia from my body. His name was John of God in Brazil, in Abidjania. And when he gave it to me, he said, "You are healed." And it wasn't John of God, it was the entities working through him. If you don't know about John of God, I would go on the internet and learn about it. I had a remote healing, and then I saw him in person. And this is what I always wear when I speak now. Something just magical comes over me. It's crystals that Abidjania in Brazil is a city or small community built on a crystal mountain. These crystals are actually from there. You can find them in the ground there. So it's what I wear. This idea of desire, listening to your desires, especially the desires that make you feel good, that really are the ones that you've perhaps ignored or not thought about. Every desire that you have is placed there by your impersonal self, this impersonal self that is in all things. This does not come from your ego. It does not come from your your life experiences. It is in there. It's an invisibleness, the same invisibleness that's keeping all of those heavenly bodies that we saw, the millions and millions of them, all in perfect arrangement and in perfect orbit and in perfect consequence to us here on this planet. The same thing is putting those desires into you. So when you have them, instead of analyzing them or looking at them from the perspective of I should or shouldn't do this or whatever, ask yourself the question, why are they there? Why are they there? Perhaps the most significant desire that I ever had in my life, altered my life, changed my life in a very big way. It was when I went to my father's grave in 1974 on August the 30th. And I went there to curse him. I went there to piss on his grave. I went there because I was filled with rage about this man who had walked out on us and put myself and my brother into an orphanage for 10 years and spent years in prison and was an alcoholic and died of cirrhosis of the liver at the age of 49 and was abusive to my mother, and so on. I don't even want to go into all of the story of it. I've told it enough times. But when I was on his grave and I went there and I was filled with rage and I was overweight at the time and I was drinking at the time and I was in a terrible relationship at the time. I was a professor at a university. My writing wasn't going the way I wanted it to go. My health was deteriorating. Things just weren't looking on a very positive path for me. And I got back in the car to return the rent-a-car and go back to New York for the fall semester. And that was the 30th of August. I had 15 days before the semester started. And I left Biloxi, I drove to New Orleans and so on. And when I got in the car to drive away to take the car back to the airport, I had a calling. The same kind of a calling that I had when I found out about an Anita M., who is now here, changing the world, changing people's ideas about whether they have to live with cancer and live with fear. The same kind of calling that I've had so many times in my life. And as I was in the car and I was ready to drive away, something called me back. And I went back, got out of the car, and I don't know why I went back, because I had been there for over 2 hours. I got there around 5, that's probably 3 hours. It was at the late end of August. It was getting dark. It was around 8 o'clock, quarter to 8. And in that moment of going back and standing there, my life was totally transformed. Everything in my life changed by listening to that desire. What placed that desire into my consciousness? What was that? Um, and what I said to my father, to this little plate on the ground that said Melvin Lyle Dyer, 1914 to 1964. I said, from this moment on, I send you love. I had no idea that's what directed me to that grave. Who am I to judge you? Who am I to judge you for what you did? You did what you knew how to do, given the conditions of your life. And the conditions of his life and his early life were not easy as well. But whatever it was, it's that impulse, it's that inner kind of calling that says, you got to go back. That's why you're here. You didn't come here to express your rage, your anger, your hatred. You came here to understand forgiveness and to get that rage out of your heart. Because it's like, I always ask to have an orange on stage. It's like this orange, you know. If you squeeze this orange, as hard as you can squeeze it, what's going to come out, of course, is juice. But not just juice, because you won't get apple juice or pineapple juice or cranberry juice, no matter how hard you squeeze. You'll get out of it orange juice, because it's an orange. And that's what's inside. And it doesn't matter who does the squeezing, it doesn't matter what time of day it is, it doesn't matter what instrument you use, it doesn't matter what conditions are taking place in your life. None of that is relevant. When you squeeze an orange, you get out of it what's inside, an orange juice. And if you extend that metaphor to yourself, and someone squeezes you, that is, puts pressure on you, that is, says something to you that you find offensive, that is insulting to you, that whatever it might be. And out of you comes anger, or hatred, or bitterness, tension, stress. It isn't because of who did the squeezing, no matter how convinced you are that that's the reason why that stuff comes out of you. It isn't because somebody cut you off on the freeway, and we see people with road rage in now, our gun-happy world, people going around killing each other because they don't understand that someone cutting you off on the freeway is not the reason for your rage. Your rage is something inside of you that says this person shouldn't have behaved that way when they did. You're just not in touch with what is real. Mark Twain, again, one of the great satirists of all time, said that forgiveness is the fragrance that the violet sheds on the heel that has crushed it. On the heel that has crushed it. That we need to learn another kind of love. Not human love, which is a love that changes and a love that varies. I love you today, not so much tomorrow because you forgot my birthday yesterday, and you won't be getting any tonight. I don't know, whatever. It changes and it varies, this thing that we call human love. But it's not really love. It's not the love that Jesus meant when he said God is love. That we all originated from love, and we return to love. So there's another kind of love. It's called spiritual love, and it's a love that it never changes, but it varies. It's the love we have for our children. It doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter how horrendous they behave and whatever it might do, or how much they may disappoint us, whatever. Those are my children. You love your children. You love them through their struggles. It does vary, but it never changes. But there's another kind of love that we need to move to understand the light inside of us and to live from that light. And that's called divine love. And divine love is a love that it's a love that never changes. It's a love that never varies. It's a love that I aspire to. I honestly am not there. I still find myself in moments of judgment. The difference between now and used to be, and I always say true nobility is not about being better than anyone else. It's about being better than you used to be. And I can sit up here and tell you for sure that I'm better than I used to be in almost every dimension that I can think of. Even 6 months ago, I'm better than I used to be. Because now I catch myself. And I've learned through all these years of sobriety of something called amends, making amends. I was in Ephesus, Turkey, giving a talk that was about to be televised and recorded in front of hundreds and hundreds of people at the home of the mother of Jesus in Ephesus, Turkey, where she lived for the last 34 years of her life. When Jesus was crucified, he asked John to make sure that his mother was taken care of. And this is where, biblically, historically, they're firmly convinced this is where she lived. And that site is there, and the home is been reconstructed, I think. I don't know if there's any part of the original there. I don't know if you've been there to Ephesus or not. But there I was, taking 300 people to hear a lecture from me at the home of the mother of Jesus. And we all got off the buses, and we went into to make a bathroom break in the middle of September in Turkey in a day that was about 92 or 93 degrees outside. And we walked, the women went in for a long line, and the men all walked into this giant urinal, which was just a bunch of metal things along the wall, and you could go in there and pee. And in there, in that room, which you can imagine how wonderful it was to be in there, this wasn't an air-conditioned place. Mary didn't have air conditioning in the last years of her life. And there was a Turkish man in there, maybe 64, 65 years old, and he had a roll of, it wasn't toilet paper, but it was like toilet paper. It was just these, like perhaps napkins of some kind, and he was passing these kind of dirty pieces of paper out to us to wash, to dry our hands off in this place. And that stuff came back, that stuff of my programming, which is what I want you to really look at, subconscious programming, the stuff that's in there that we were convinced of. One of the things we talked about was this awareness that we are God. We all are sparks of God. We're all pieces of God. And therefore we're divine. And we're sacred. And we matter. And we're connected to each other. But we got conditioned to believe in our ordinariness and in what we can't do and what's not possible and so on. And we live with this stuff, and we also get conditioned, the subconscious programming. We get conditioned with all of the judgments, all of the things that, in the I Am Discourses on page 318, I can actually read this without glasses, but it's, the student should constantly look within his human self and see what habits or creations are there that need to be plucked out and disposed of. For only by refusing to any longer allow habits of judging, condemning, and criticizing to exist can he be free. The true activity of the student, all of us as students, is only to perfect his own world, and he can never do it as long as he sees imperfections in the world of another of God's children. That's really a big assignment in the I Am Discourses, something I urge you to read through. I've studied this so many times. It's another book I've read at least 10 or 11 times. Imagine to be able to remove all of these judgments about how the world should be and how everybody in it ought to be, and to be in a place of equanimity, in a place of allowing, and just free of your judgments about it. Even the horrible stuff, the stuff that we see on television all the time, the hatreds and all of that, to get ourselves past the judgment of it and to find a place, because it's going to take enough of us committing to light, to being light, and having no judgment, no criticism, no condemnation, and only love. Everybody who's out there asking for a handout doesn't deserve your judgment. Whether you give them anything or not is not even relevant. You can always give a blessing to whoever it is, whatever it is that they're doing. I mean, people talk about Christianity and all of that, and it's like it's about loving our enemies. It's about having love for everyone. Just driving over here, there were two people sound asleep on the sidewalk under a blanket. And I had to have him pull over. I had to go and talk to those people, a man and a woman lying there on the street. It's almost incumbent upon those of us who have so much to treat those who don't with dignity and respect and love. I put a $50 bill in each one of their hands. And the woman sat up and looked up, and she was naked under the blanket. And she had so much gratitude in her heart that someone wasn't coming there knocking on them, waking them up and saying, "Get off of our streets," but was saying, "How may I feed you? How may I serve you today?" We have to practice this. And when we find ourselves in places of judgment, to remove that and to make amends for it. There I am in Turkey, about to give a lecture at the home of the mother of Jesus that is being televised and recorded. And I've got judgment about this man standing there expecting a tip for handing me a piece of dirty paper in a smelly urinal. And I walk out of there with judgment in my heart. This was the 30th of September. I remember it so well because it was the birthday of Rumi. 30th of September. Mevlana, our master, Jalaluddin Rumi, who I was giving a lecture about. And I got about halfway to where I was going to lecture with this big stand set up and place for everybody to stand around and mill around right outside the home of the mother of Jesus. I want to keep reminding you where I was. And I've got judgment in my heart, getting ready to give a talk about how to become more spiritual and listen to the words of one of the greatest love poets of all time, Jalaluddin Rumi, Mevlana, our master. And I turned around, because this is the difference between me now and then. I turned around because I caught myself and realized what I was doing with this kind of judgment. And that's the key to shifting your subconscious mind, your subconscious programming. It's more, you have to do more than just recognize it and acknowledge it and say, okay, I thought those thoughts, and the next time that happens, I'm not going to do it again. You have to make amends. I learned that when I let alcohol be no longer a part of my life 3.5 decades ago. That you have to make amends. Make amends with yourself. Make amends with God. God being your highest self. That's always talking to you and always encouraging you. And, you know, it tells you not to eat that food that isn't good for you. It tells you that you shouldn't be putting sugar into your bodies. It tells you to get rid of gluten, you know, that this stuff isn't good for you. You see it when you look in the mirror, when you stand on the scale. You know that. You know that there's voices in there saying, you don't have to be this way. This doesn't have to be the way it is. But you can't fix it by expecting those things out there to change. It's an inside job. You have to come to a new awareness. And then you have to make amends. If you want to change your subconscious programming that you've had since you were a little boy, which is everybody's out there trying to make a buck. Everybody's wanting tips. Why should I give tips to somebody who's in a bathroom, for God's sake? That's insane. All I want to do is go in and take a pee, and I've got to got some money? That's the stuff. You've heard this stuff. You hear it. You've said it yourself. I was saying it myself. And I went back. And I put my arms around him, and all I had on me was €20 note, which was about $30. And I put it in his hand, and I thanked him for honoring me by offering me something to dry my hands. He looked at me like I was crazy. He didn't understand English even. But he had the same look on his face that the man and woman that were sound asleep on the street on my way here had when I placed that money in their hands. In the 17th chapter of this book, it's called Finding Me. Like, as I read this, The Impersonal Life, the first time I read it, I got up to chapter 17. I'd read 16 chapters, and I had written notes all the way through it, and I was just touched by it, and I was thinking, somehow, in some way, I know I'm going to write something using this kind of a format. That's why it's so intriguing. It's why I've read it now 8 solid times, because I know that, and every time I read it, it's like a new book. And I kept asking myself the question, and it was a Friday morning, and I had just read chapter 16, and I put it down because I was just reading a chapter a day, and you can read a chapter in 20 minutes, half an hour, if not even that. Some of them are very short. And I was asking, okay, so I hear my impersonal self talking to me saying, I place all desires into your head. This has nothing, or into your consciousness. This has nothing to do with you. This is you, meaning Wayne Dyer, this body that I'm in, the clay pot that the clay. It's not, I just couldn't, I couldn't, how do I get in touch with this, When are they going to tell me that what I can do? I know I have to change my thinking, but what can I do? What can I do differently? And I've had this practice for a couple of years now. There's a woman at the bank where I go to the bank on Maui. Her name is Cheyenne. And her husband has diabetes and can't work. And she has 3 children, twins and another child under the age of 4. And she's pretty much working as a bank teller, trying to support them, and living on Maui. If you've been to Maui, you know that a bowl of cereal costs $13. So, I mean, it's like, okay, it's a very expensive place to live. And she works not only that job, but she works another job as well, and takes care of her kids, and takes care of her husband, who's got diabetes. So what I do when I go there, because when my kids come to visit, which they do a lot, when you live on Maui, your kids, they love you so much. They come, they get free tickets, they come there, they fly over. And my kids, I don't know about your kids, but my kids like cash. I don't know if your kids are like that or not, but they love cash. And so I have to go to the bank a lot and get cash when they arrive. They don't like checks, like cash. So I go to the bank at least once a week, and just to do whatever banking kind of things. And what I've been doing for the last couple of years, and we've never talked about it because I don't know if it's legal. Because I know I'm being photographed. I mean, there's cameras everywhere, as you were finding out. Every time I do a transaction, I take a couple of $100 bills when she gives me cash back, and I put it under the keyboard on her computer. And I've never said anything to her about it, and she's never said anything to me about it. It's just what I do whenever I go to the bank, usually on Friday. And I know that after doing this for several years now, that she very likely has become somewhat dependent on that, that it's. And so now when I go to the bank, I always think about, is Cheyenne going to be there? I don't want to go when she's on a break, and I don't want to go when she might be at lunch because, she's not I'm not going to be able to do this little silent thing that goes on between the two of us. And I'm always kind of wondering where the camera is and kind of putting my arm up here and slipping the money under there. It's true, I do. And she always smiles, and I just reach over the counter and I give her a kiss on the cheek, and she always and I've never seen her any place but in the bank. That's where I know her. It's Friday morning, and it's about 9 o'clock, and I'm thinking now, okay, I want to go to the bank today. I got my kids coming in the afternoon. I want to get this. I got to get that done. But I want to go to the bank, but I got to make sure that I go at a time when she's going to be there. And then I also stop and see this woman named Randy, who works at who's quite sick right now, but who works at the dry cleaners, and in a very hot place on Maui where they have just this dry cleaning plant. You can imagine what it'd be like in there. She's there every day. And I drive by there. I always go in, and I plunk $100 in her hand. And I've been doing that for years as well. The second or third time I did it, she just looked at me and she said, "Are you God?" And I said, "You want to know something? Yes, I am." And I said, "And Randy, and so are you. I just know it, and you doubt it. I just know that I am. And she just, anyway, that's kind of what I do on Fridays. So I'm debating it, and finally I just said, screw it. I put it down. I said, I'm going to the bank now because I know she doesn't take a break before 10 o'clock. I know that for sure. So I'll just go now. I'll just get it over with and get it done. So I do that, stop at the dry cleaner on the way back, and do my little thing. Cheyenne is there, and I come back to my apartment. And I'm going to read now chapter 17. This is the very first time I've read it. This is, I don't know how long ago it was, a year or so ago. And I pick up chapter 17, and this is what I read in a chapter called Finding Me. And it almost blew my socks off if I ever wore socks. The best and the surest way you may know me Who is me? Your highest self, your impersonal self, the same God of your fingernails that we all share. There's not an individual God for each one of our fingernails. There's one source for all of us, and we all share it. The best and the surest way you may know me is when selfless love fills your heart and there is a strong, compelling urge to help someone to heal their ills, to relieve their suffering, to bring them happiness, to point out the true way. That is the actual feel of me within you. That's your impersonal self. That's how it talks to you. I'm going to say it again. The best and the surest way you may know me is when selfless love fills your heart, and every mother in this room knows what I'm talking about. When you look at your new infant or your child, or your child that's in, how old are you now, 45, 50? What are you? Whatever. You know, I look at her, you just love them. You know, you just love them. The best and the surest way you may know me is when selfless love fills your heart and there is a strong, compelling urge to help someone, to heal their ills, to relieve their suffering, to bring them happiness, to point out the true way. That is the actual feel of me within you. Pushing the personality aside, using your mind and your body for the purpose I created them as avenues for the expression of my real nature, which is perfect love. Or divine love, as I said. The Christ of God, the one vitalizing, quickening, life-giving, strengthening, healing, all-supplying, all-informing power in the universe. It's in you. And it speaks to you like this. If you will but turn to me, your impersonal self, your highest self, God within, and will carefully watch for and study these impressions which you are receiving every moment, and will learn to trust them, and thus to wait upon and rest in me, putting all your faith in me, I will guide you in all your ways. I will solve for you all your problems, make easy all your work, and you will be led among green pastures beside the still waters of life. If you will devote but 1 hour each day to me alone, imagining and practicing the presence of me within you, 1 hour a day. It says so also in the I Am Discourses. It's only 1 in a million persons who will spend 5 minutes a day in a state of deep and profound gratitude for the I Am presence that you take with you everywhere you go. Just to be in a state of gratitude for it. I'm blown away by it. I mean, it brings me to tears. The joy you feel when you start to realize there is something placing these desires inside of you that is not the physical, personal you that you are, which is just you, your body, and your resume, and your story. I hereby promise you that you will not only very soon find me, but I will be to you an exhaustless fount of such wisdom and strength and help as your human mind now cannot possibly conceive. An hour a day in a state of deep gratitude for the I Am presence that you are. Yes, if you will but seek me thus, making me first in your life, your number one relationship to God, that is, to the highest self within you. Never resting until you find me, it will not be long before you will become conscious of my presence, of my loving voice, speaking constantly from you out of the depths of your heart. That happened to me on the way here. I said to the driver, there were 6 people in the car, I said to the driver, you got to pull over. I was in the middle of the street. He said, watch out. You can open the door, you'll get hit. It didn't matter. And it wasn't, I'm not telling you this so that you'll think I'm so wonderful. That's not it at all. I don't talk about hardly any of this stuff any place except here where I can give you concrete examples of this is what I'm working on in myself. It's what made me go back to the urinal in Ephesus in the middle of September, or the end of September, to make amends so that I could have a reprogramming of a subconscious mind that says everybody is out for a tip, to everybody deserves some of your kindness. Remember, 97% of everything that you do subconsciously. You get up in the morning, you brush your teeth. You get up in the morning, you do all of the things that you do. You get dressed, you drive to work, all of those things. You don't think about any of them. You don't have to use your conscious mind to do hardly anything. You did at one time when you first learned to drive, when you first learned how to tie your shoes and all of those things, but it became part of your automatic subconscious programming. But your subconscious programming is more than just learning how to tie your shoes and how to comb your hair and how to do all the other things that you do. It's about all of the other kind of stuff that says, I'm ordinary, I can't do this, I can't make myself into a fount of perfect health. I don't have the ability to do that. You have the same ability that everybody who ever lived has. We all share it. It's all one. And when you're in that state that Anita spoke about so brilliantly, all you have to do, she said, all you have to do to see your brother getting on a plane in India is to think about it. She's in Hong Kong, he's in India, he's getting on a plane, and guess what? She sees him getting on the plane. Because when you're in your dream state, at night, when you're sound asleep and in your dream state, anything that you place your attention on automatically manifests. That's called Siddhi consciousness. It's Christ consciousness. That's why Jesus was able to heal the sick and feed the masses from the fish and the loaves and raise the dead. And they talk about this in the life and teachings of the masters of the Far East over and over again, that all you have to do, Siddhi consciousness is a consciousness in which there is no time delay between you having a thought and it manifesting for you right there on the spot. It's right there. Deepak and I used to do this thing together, with this dialogue together about the 4 ways to get strawberry ice cream. You really want some strawberry ice cream? There's 4 ways to get strawberry ice cream. The first way is to have a thought, gee, I'd like to have some strawberry ice cream. And then you get up and you get on your bicycle or you get in your car or whatever, you drive to the store and you go get it. That's one way. There's a higher way of consciousness that said, I'd really like to have some strawberry ice cream. And you sit there in your chair and you send one of your kids off to get it. You're moving up in consciousness. Go get me some strawberry ice cream. And you sit there, they come back, and it's manifested, and you think that's higher consciousness, okay? The third way to have strawberry ice cream is to have a thought, gee, I'd like to have some strawberry ice cream, I'd really like to have some strawberry ice cream, and someone walks past you, and they say to you, and you've all had this experience, Carl Jung called it synchronicity. Someone walks by you and looks at you and says, excuse me, is this your strawberry ice cream? And you go, booga, booga, booga. What's going on here? I was just thinking about strawberry ice cream, and here you are walking by. And guess what? As you move up in consciousness towards the light, those things happen more and more frequently. I'll bet you they happen. I will have to talk to you about that when you come up, Anita. But I'll bet you that happens more to you now than it did before you were sick. That you have these thoughts and you manifested me. You got me right into your life just by that thought, yeah. So that's the third way to get strawberry ice cream. Now the highest level of consciousness is called Siddhi consciousness, and this works like this. You have a thought, gee, I'd really like to have some strawberry ice cream, and you do how Jesus did it. You manifest it from your thought. You feed the masses. Here's enough bread for everyone. And in the life and teachings of the masters of the Far East, the masters know how to do this. There are people on our planet who do this. I've watched Vibhuti being manifested right there. from consciousness. We all have this. We've lost it. We've lost our ability to communicate telepathically because we get telephones. I now realized that my assistant on Maui has a phone number, and I call her at least 4 times a day, and I don't know her number. I don't even know her number. I don't even know if she's in the same area code because I just go like this on a little iPhone. I just touch it, and I've lost the ability. I used to know everybody's number, using this innate capacity that we have. So while it is wonderful and technology does all of these things, it also takes away some of our humanity, our ability to do the things. I mean, our ancestors, when they wanted to communicate with someone 20 miles away, they only had one way to do it. Native Americans talk about this a lot, how they would be able to send a message telepathically to someone. Bring home some diapers. I don't know if they brought home diapers. I got that call so often when I was young. And if you don't honor this and don't really believe it, don't understand it, then what you're doing is you're going back to your subconscious programming and say, well, that's okay. He gets to do that. His name is Wayne Dyer, and that's Anita, and she got to do that because she was selected and she's special. But I got news for you. Nobody is special. We're all one. Thus, abiding continually in me may be difficult at first for the world. But you will become accustomed to the use of my impersonal eyes and will soon be able to see into the reality of things, even into the reality of these seeming lords of the earth. Then you will find you are dwelling in a wondrous new world, peopled with angelic beings, using the flesh bodies of their human personalities merely as vehicles or as instruments or clothing in which to contact the earthly conditions and experiences. They have created in order to develop the soul qualities necessary for the perfect expression on earth of my idea. The highest self is always speaking about my idea, the impersonal my idea, which is just creating equanimity and love amongst all of us. That's how the universe works. To your eyes, then, there will be no shadows, no evil, and consequently, no devil. People ask that question, what about Satan and what about the devil? Please, if you believe in Satan and you believe in a devil, you are going to experience one even when you leave this body. You will create that. If you think such a thing is absurd, or if you just reread a little bit of that Torah in Genesis, in the beginning, which there never was such a thing, God created heaven and earth. And all that God created was, and everything that was created by God. And everything that exists was created by God, and everything was good. Now you tell me how you get a devil and a Satan in there. But if you believe in those things, you will create that as your reality. That will be your expectation. If you think such a thing is not a possibility, it won't be for you. Then the great realization will come that you have found the kingdom of God, that you are walking in it, that it is right here on this earth, that it is manifesting all around you, that you have been living in it all the time, but you did not know it. And now the conclusion. When you have found the kingdom, you will likewise find your place in it, realizing now that you are in truth one of my divine attributes, that your work was all laid out for you from the beginning. That is so good. Your whole life was laid out for you from the beginning. Carl Jung said, at the same moment that you're a protagonist in your own life and you're making choices, the very same moment, he said you're also the spear carrier or the extra in a much larger drama. He said, in effect, you're all doomed to make choices. Doomed to make choices. It's a paradox. If you're doomed, there's no choice to be made. If you're making choices, you're not doomed. How do you reconcile that? Well, shift to your body. Doomed. I got, for this incarnation, a body that's 6'1.5", that's got blue eyes, it's got white skin, got no hair on its head, and this is what I get. Now, I'm in a sense doomed, but I'm also making choices about this body. I can feed it properly, I can exercise it, I can keep contaminants out of it. Lots of things that I can do to make sure that this body of mine is treated as a sacred temple that houses my soul. William Butler Yeats, the famous Irish poet, an aged man, he said, is but a paltry thing, a tattered coat upon a stick. I love that image. Unless soul claps its hands and sings, and louder sings, for every tatter in its mortal dress. We're just tattered coats on a stick, unless we find our soul. Now, if you understand doomed to make choices, what Jung was speaking about, this paradox, if you understand that it starts to make sense that yes, you're doomed, but you can make a lot of choices and you can keep this body not only as healthy as you can make it, which I'm in the process of doing, but you can keep it from aging. And ultimately, it can't die. There's no death. It's all an illusion. Now imagine the rest of your life was all laid out for you just like your body was. What you came here for, who you were to meet, what you were to accomplish, what your dharma was, all of this. It's all laid out there for you. You signed up for it. Hard to imagine, but I know it to be true. Just put the finishing touches on a book called Memories of Heaven, where I ask people from all over the planet to tell me stories about children, especially young children. That being around young children, been around children, love to be around children, love babies, love being around little toddlers and so on. And this whole, like William Wordsworth, the famous English poet, said, our, our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting. Heaven lies about us in our infancy. I talk to infants. I talk to brand new babies. I communicate with them. I ask them about God. As soon as they can get a word out, I ask them about it. My assistant, her name is Dee, she has a little boy named Marcus. When he was 17 months old and just learning to say words, she said, what is heaven like? And he went like this, put his arms up like this. And she said, well, what is God like? I swear to you, was one of his very first words. He said, light. Remember, Sky? Light. Out of the mouth of a baby. So I put that on my Facebook page. I got a couple million people on that Facebook page, and I just ask questions. Have you had any experiences like this? Tell me about them. Send them to us. We're going to compile them. We're going to put a little compendium of these kinds of stories out. You should see them. We got thousands and thousands of them. We just collated them all, and I wrote something for each chapter. And about children picking their parents. It's like, I told my daughter Serena, one time, who was always complaining to me, always complaining about how I was parenting, and I didn't do this right, I didn't do that right. She put her hand on her, and it's like, if I ever raised my voice, she'd look at me and say, I wonder what all those people would think of Mr. Positive if they could see him here. It's like, so good at pointing things out like that. So one time I just got so tired, like she just wouldn't stop. And I was complaining about it. You shouldn't do it this, you should say that, whatever, and I said, honey, you really shouldn't be mad at me for the way I'm parenting. I'm just doing what I know how to do. I'm just doing the best I can. But you're really the reason that I'm your father. I mean, you picked me. And if you don't like the kind of father that I am and the kind of mother that your mom is, I said, then, you really should be examining why in an important time like that, big a decision for you to make, why you would choose me to be your father. You're telling me that I picked you to be my father? I said, exactly, that's the way it works, honey. You had to get here somehow, and that's how it works. She said, I must have been in a hurry. That's a true story. I said, well, when you got important decisions to make, you shouldn't rush through them like that, I can't tell you how many people from around the planet have told stories about choosing their parents and kids saying to their mother, I chose you, and giving all kinds of reasons why and so on. Anyway, it's this whole idea that our life is like, when you have found the kingdom, you will likewise find your place in it, realizing now that you are in truth one of my divine attributes, that your work was all laid out for you from the beginning, and that all that has gone before has been but a preparation and a fitting of your human personality for that work. It was all laid out there for you from the beginning. And you had all of these choices about what you're going to make. The other major decision, which was a calling, that you have to listen to these callings. When you hear yourself saying to yourself inside, yes, I should go this way, or I should do that, or I should turn right instead of left, or I should pick up this, or do this, whatever that burning desire is, and you can't get it to go away. Whether it's about your whole life purpose or it's about whatever it might be. I mean, Sky was singing when she couldn't talk. She started singing when she was like a year and a half, 2 years old. She was singing Michael Jackson songs, remember? It was just a knowing. And you listen to that. And you all have that. You all came here for that. It was all laid out there for you. But just like you have let your bodies get out of the perfect health that they were destined to be in, working on your nutrition and your health is a perfect way to get in touch with this inner quality of your highest self, the light that is inside of you that is prodding you, it's begging you, it's asking you. You know how your body feels when you put things in it that aren't good for it. It sends you signals. You know what they are. And yet, you don't want to listen to that. And that's just the easy part, is getting your body into the maximum perfect health that it can be. And you can all do this. Every single person in here, you can do it. When you are around that, when you surround yourself with that kind of energy, and you can do that, that's the easy part. The part that I'm addressing with you now is the other part, the part about your soul. The part that I want you to address is the rest of it that was all laid out for you, as he says in the impersonal life. Everything that you came here to do it was all laid out there for you. It's all ready for you. I'm driving down the Long Island Expressway in 1976. I'm 36 years old. I'm a professor at a university in New York City, St. John's University. I'm an associate professor about to get full professorship at the age of 36 and about to be granted tenure, which at that time was like, at any time on a college campus, getting tenure is like everybody wants tenure. That means you've got a job for the rest of your life. You don't ever have to think about that, and it's a cushy job. You know, you're a professor at a university, they think they work hard, but they don't. And they teach 3 classes, you know, and it's like I had more free time. I ran a practice. I was doing lectures on the side. I was, you know, teaching driver education and working full time as a professor, please. And it was, and so here I was getting ready for my tenure appointment, and I knew I was getting it because I had written some textbooks, and I was one of their, you know, that's the publish or perish thing, and I had done that, and I had just written this book called Your Erroneous Zones, and unknown, and all of that. And I'm on my way into the campus, and they've got big plans for me there. I'm going to be one of their stars, you know, their professorial stars, and I'm on the Long Island Expressway, and I pull off to the shoulder of the road because something overwhelming. I write about this, and I can see clearly now. It just as I'm driving in my Volkswagen, I can tell you everything about that Volkswagen. And I just sit there and I think, do I really want tenure? That means I'm going to be here doing the same thing for the rest of my life. This is where I'm going to be. This is what I'm going to do. And the idea of that, and I had this new book that only had a few thousand bucks in the first printing, which I bought up, and the second printing and the third printing later on, and took total responsibility for all of it myself. But at that time, you know, I had 3 textbooks, I had this new book, and I couldn't do it. And all of a sudden, the light just hit me. And the one thing I can say that defines me is that they say you never regret what you do, you only regret what you don't do, you know. There's a woman who wrote a book called The 5 Regrets of the Dying. Her name's Bronnie Ware. Bronnie Ware, W-A-R-E, she's from Australia. She was a hospice nurse working with the dying. And these are angels, because my mother was in hospice for the last 10 days or so of her life, and I know what these people do and how beautiful they are as people are making their transition. And Bronnie Ware's, she wrote a book. She interviewed 800 people who were in hospice and asked them, what is your number 1 regret? And her book's called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And the number 1 regret of dying people, the 800 people that she interviewed, was, I wish that I would have had the courage to live my life the way I knew I should, rather than listening to other people tell me how I should do it. I wish, that's my regret. I drove back onto the Long Island Expressway, pulled up to the exit there at Grand Central and Utopia Parkway, and parked my car at I had my own parking place in New York, unheard of, and walked up to the 2nd floor of Marillac Hall, walked into the dean's office, Dean Sarah Fassenmeyer, and I said to her, this will be my last semester. I can't teach anymore. I'm going to take this book and I'm going to take it across the country myself. And she thought that I was crazy. She wanted me to, she said, call your family, talk to them about this. I said, no, it's not necessary. And I think I felt freer in that moment than I can ever remember in my life. I had given up a lifetime, a guaranteed employment. I would still be there. I know, I was just up in New York not too long ago, and you know, the traffic is about the same as it was then. You know, in fact, they're still fixing the same road. They have the same people there putting the cones on there doing. I mean, it was like, I said, well, nothing has changed. It's been 40 years, and this is what. But the idea of doing that, I remember being interviewed by Beverly Sills, the famous opera singer, who left at the height of her career, and she was interviewing me. She had her own TV show, and she had a charm bracelet on, and she had one charm on there that had the letters IDTA on it. And I asked her about it on the air. I said, what is that? You know, it's just hanging down there. She said, oh, that's to remind me, I did that already. I did that already, you know. It's like you can live to be 90 and live 90 years. But so many people live 1 year 90 times, over and over and over. And it could, but that was a calling. This is what I'm speaking about. It's the calling. When you have that calling that's pulling you in a direction,